Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a minute.
Oh, that's right.
Hello, welcome everyone. This is Jamie Bowler, Conference and Membership Associate at APAP. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, How to APAP, Exhibiting at APAP NYC 2020. Before we get started, we'd like to review a few technical items to ensure that everyone is properly set up to participate. We're using a new webinar platform for today, so we'd ask that you bear with any potential technical difficulties. We're also not using the video functionality during today's webinar, so we'd ask that you do not enable that feature. During today's webinar, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and provide comments using the chat function. To ensure that the chat feature is visible, you may need to click the button at the bottom of the Zoom window labeled Chat. Within the chat, check that the Send To drop-down menu says Everyone before you submit. That way we can all see your remarks. If you have comments or questions of a sensitive nature, feel free to send to the moderator by selecting APAP in the Send To drop-down menu. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A and comments at the end of the webinar, but feel free to use the chat box throughout the webinar, not just during the Q&A. We'll also be recording this webinar to post on our website within the next few days.
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Exhibiting at APAP NYC 2020, the webinar. We are pleased to receive a greeting from our President and CEO, Mario Garcia-Durham.
Thank you very much, Judy. And thank you all for joining this webinar. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Scott Coulter, Ken DiCamillo, Pat Hazel, and Toby DeMarkin, who volunteered to assist us today. This is a very person-to-person industry, and we really appreciate our colleagues helping us all in this joint effort. And on behalf of the staff and the board of APAP and the membership and myself, I wanted to give you all a very warm welcome. We recognize that our conference requires a significant investment of time and your resources, and our goal is that you find the experience enjoyable, enlightening, informative, and most importantly, of personal value in your work and or career. So again, on behalf of all of us at APAP, we welcome you, and I hope I have a chance to meet you in New York City. And now I have the great pleasure of turning this over to our conference director, Neo Narnor-Madison. Neo.
Thank you, Mario. Hello, everyone. As Mario said, I'm Neo Narnor-Madison, the Conference and Meetings Director, and we're delighted to have everyone join us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Judy Moore, who will give us today's agenda.
Thank you, Neo. First, we're going to do a conference overview. Secondly, we'll do Expo Hall information. Then we're going to have stories from the source. That means from our expert panelists. Then we'll have a Q&A, hopefully with a number of questions from the chat box that you all have sent in. Lastly, we're going to have a post-conference follow-up. Now to introduce our expert panelists, our special guests. Number one, Scott Coulter, who's the owner and founder of Spot On Entertainment. Scott, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for being on the panel.
Of course.
Next, thank you. Next, we have Ken DiCamillo, who's the Vice President of William Morris Endeavor Agency. Ken, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks for joining. Next, we have Pat Hazel, who's the Chief Creative Officer of Sweetwood Creative. Hi, Pat.
Hello, gang. How are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you. And lastly, we have Toby Tumarkin, who's the Executive Vice President and Global Head of Artists and Attractions for IMG Artists. Hi, Toby.
Hi, Judy.
Thanks for joining the panel.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm giving it back to Neo to go over the expo hall.
Thank you, Judy. The Expo Hall, as we like to refer to it, the largest performing arts marketplace in the world, will be open for business Saturday, January 11th through Monday, January 13th. Our Expo Hall spans 3 floors in the New York Hilton Midtown. We have more than 370 booths available. A few booths remain available for purchase, so I would encourage everyone, or if anyone is still interested in purchasing a booth, that they do so very soon. Our Expo Hall hours are Saturday through Monday. We have accessible hours on both Sunday and Monday. During accessible hours, you will not be penalized for not manning your booth. We have load-in available Friday and Saturday, and load-out takes place on Monday. And I will turn it back over to Judy.
Thank you, Neo. And I just want to follow up on what Neo was just going over about the Expo Hall hours. I get a lot of questions through the phone and through the computer, through email, about what are accessible hours. So I just want to sort of say it here since this is going to be posted on the website. Accessible hours means actually you can not be in your booth during that period, whatever the designated period is. And you could have, for example, a sign in your booth that says, away for now, please feel free to take a business card. It's at your discretion. But the big thing is that you won't be penalized by us for not being in your booth during that time period. Okay, now the 3-step process to purchasing your booth. Number 1, it says renew your membership, but if you don't have a membership, you don't have one to renew. So it's either purchase your membership or renew it. That's step 1. Step 2, buy a conference registration. It says register for APAP. Purchase a conference registration. And number 3, your third financial transaction, purchase your booth. Log into my APAP conference page on apapnyc.org and click purchase your booth. And the rest of this slide has the 8 booth sizes, the 8 price points, and the number of booth badges included, depending on the size of the booth. And now, Nia.
Thank you. As Judy mentioned, once you have assigned your complimentary booth badges, you will have the opportunity to purchase additional badges. Booth badges, the pricing is $295 for up to 10 badges and $395 for 11 or more badges until January 3rd. After January 3rd, on-site pricing is available. The price will go up to $400 for 11 or more badges and $500 for more than 11 badges, if that's what you're interested in. But you want to make sure you purchase badges before January 3rd to get the best rate. Thank you. And now I'd like to talk about useful resources. We have many resources available leading up to APAP NYC. The interactive floor plan is a great tool to use to search the floor plans to see booth placement. New this year, we have a search by discipline option, which means you can search for members or booths that are related to dance, music, or theater. So I'd like for everyone to utilize this new feature as we think it's a great tool. We also have our website available. Once you've registered, you can view segmented attendee lists. Those are downloadable. You can search, and you can search by address or discipline, and you can also use this list to send notices to any attendees that have opted in advance of the conference. We also have tutorial videos available on our website, and we'll talk a little bit more about our website options later. Now back to Judy.
Thanks, Nia. Okay, now the most important date in the webinar, the booth payment deadline. So for those folks who've already purchased a booth, please know that on Wednesday, October 16 of 2019, your booth has to be paid for in full. Any balance, it says any, this is the deadline, to pay any balance due. Very important date. We don't, as in the system does not hold your credit card information. There was a time in APAP's life when that, when that was different, when the system held the information and you didn't have to log back in and pay what you owed. But now we need you to log back in and pay any balance due, or I'll call you. Okay, so please remember that date. Just write it down somewhere. Now, Neo.
Thank you, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
So before you arrive, there are many things you'd like to do, and I won't read our list that you see on the PowerPoint, but a few things to highlight. Be sure to read your detailed exhibitor information and your FAQs. You want to book travel. We have rates available at the Sheraton and the Hilton. Be sure to book by our deadline to receive our conference rates. Review the GES Exhibitor Kit and order any services you need, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Schedule Expo Hall meetings with presenters, and as Judy mentioned, complete your booth payment by October 17th. Thank you. Back to Judy.
Yes, thank you, Neil. I just want to, on that last slide, the last one is know when you will load into the hall. And I just want to emphasize that there are booths that are late load-in booths. And there's a demarcation on the floor plan with a little star. But just want to remind, though, for those folks who purchase a late load-in booth, your load-in is Saturday at 12 noon. You have an hour. So you have 12 to 1 to load in for those folks. Okay, now going over more about the GES kit. There's some shows that come with electricity. This show does not come with electricity. So that means anybody that wants electricity in their booth, you will need to go to the GES Exhibitor Kit online, click the link, and then go to the section that talks about additional services. The electricity is considered an additional service provided by the Hilton. So if you have any questions about that, just remember on the website, the GES Exhibitor Kit link, same place where it's the same link that you use for shipping, for, triple padding, underneath your carpet, or, like a whole host of things, like 41 different things. Next, the hall has free Wi-Fi. And then number 3, and this is another important note that is especially important for first-timers. Exhibitors are allowed to enter the hall 15 minutes prior to every opening. So that means, for example, the Expo Hall opens on Saturday at 2 p.m. Exhibitors get to come in at 1:45, and you get to get in your booth and calmly set up, so that you can receive people at 2 when the hall opens. So remember, that's every opening 15 minutes prior. The guards at the doors will allow exhibitors to come in. Number 4, no live performances are permitted in the hall, which means no live sound other than your voice, than you talking to people and doing business. Digital media must be played with headphones. We have freight elevators located on each floor, must be used to transport large items. The Hilton, New York has very sensitive escalators in the Expo Hall. So if you can't carry it, whatever you have with you, if you can't carry that in your arms, then you're going to need to use the freight elevators, and again, they're on every floor. Lastly, we provide complimentary bellman services that will help deliver items to your booth, and that could really come in handy. Now, Leo.
Thanks, Judy. So inside the GES Exhibitor Kit, GES is our show decorator. And outside of Judy Moore, our conference manager, who's the best resource for everything in the Expo Hall, GES is the second best resource. If you want to use your exhibitor kit to order electricity, wired internet, any audio-visual and cleaning services that you may need, in addition to decorating and furniture requests. You can utilize GES to manage your lead retrieval as an alternative to collecting business cards from all of the attendees that visit your booth. You can also discuss your booth layout with GES, in addition to going over more shipping information and FAQs and exhibitor tips. You can access the GES Exhibitor Kit by visiting Manage Your Booth page at apapnyc.org. And back to Judy.
Thank you, Neil. So the next slide is the little store manager slide. Okay, so for those folks who've been to APAP before or been into the expo hall before, you may have seen the floor managers. There's one on every floor. And you may have met them and you may have seen them. A lot of folks know Don Walker and a few folks know Tyrone, they've come every year for last few years. But these are folks that we hire and we put in place to make sure that the terms of agreement that every exhibitor has agreed to are respected. So, for example, you know, there's only a certain height that anything in your booth can reach. You know, you can't go over the top of your pipe and drape, as an example. So, and the floor managers are also there to help. So they're watching, but they're also, you know, feel free to ask them questions. If you want to know, like, where's the GES info desk? And they'll say, oh, it's at the top of the Rhinelander escalator on the second floor by the entrance of America's Hall 1, for example. All right, now, to the stories. Okay, I'm going back to the expert panelists. All right, so the first person that we're going to open up is Scott Coulter. Scott, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, great, thank you. Okay, looking forward to hearing your story.
So are you just looking for our background or our APAP experiences? I want to be sure to give you exactly what you're looking for.
It's what you wanted. I gave you the option of a number of things. It's what you want. You could give tips, like the top 10 things that Scott Coulter thinks that every exhibitor should do.
Gotcha.
Or you could say, like, you know, the funniest things that have happened to you in the expo hall, like that.
I'm good to go. I'm good to go. This is the biggest tip I can give first-time exhibitors. Sounds crazy, but I live by this, is to have hand sanitizer in your booth, because you're going to be shaking hands all day long. It's the middle of cold and flu season in New York. The exhibitor hall is always incredibly hot. It's through no one's fault. It's winter in New York, so the heat is on. So have water in your booth and have hand sanitizer, because seriously, you're going to be shaking hands all day long with people that have been shaking hands all day long, and it will keep you from getting sick. That's the main thing. The other thing is, do take advantage of the bellmen who are there, because they can really make setting up a much easier process. It's sort of hard to navigate the Hilton. There are a lot of escalators. It's a big space. There's a lot of walking, a lot of stuff to carry. So do they're there to help you, and don't hesitate to ask for them. And the other thing I would say for first-time exhibitors is, if you've never done this before, it can be very overwhelming and daunting to be in that big hall with all of those people, trying to, connect with other folks. And the main thing is just to take a deep breath and relax and enjoy it, because it's not really about a hard sell. It's not about pushing your product on people. It's really about building relationships. And there are going to be people that you meet this first time that will come back to you 3 years from now and book something, out of the blue. So I know everybody on the panel is from an organization of different sizes. I'm probably, I would guess, the smallest presenter here. We've been going to APAP for about 13, 14 years now. And it's really about building relationships with both presenters and with other exhibitors, because the people that are around you in the hall, the booths across from you, the booths next to you, will actually become a resource for you through the years. People pass on tips to other exhibitors. If I don't have, what a presenter is looking for, I will recommend someone else that I've met through my years at APAP. So it really, it's a competitive industry, but the more you can sort of embrace the communal aspect of it, I think it just helps overall with bookings and just, long-term success. I started with about 3 or 4 small concerts and just, doing small venues across the country. And now I primarily book for symphony orchestras all around the world. And everything just, I can trace everything back to that first APAP conference that I went to and the things that I learned both by being there and just from observing other things that were happening. So really just sort of keep an open mind, a positive attitude, and hand sanitizer. I mean, that's my main takeaway. Take care of yourself in all aspects.
Thank you, Scott. That was fantastic. Thank you. Next, Ken, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. So looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah, well, I go back to APAP when they were still dial phones, 1981 to be exact, when it was called the Kuka. And I got to tell you, when Scott hit on the head as far as that the collegial atmosphere there. The other big thing, what I have found, and I keep learning this every year, is try to have an organized schedule of appointments. What we've been doing lately at our company is we try to have somebody in the booth who doesn't have an appointment to, put them down on a list of papers so you get to them, and try to make appointments in that quiet room or outside the ballroom, what I call the cyber cafe. I don't know what it's called anymore, Judy, but it's just a great area where people can meet very quietly. And one thing that APAP does, they allow us to have these facilities to be able to have these meetings and be prepared. Make your meetings ahead of time, okay? And of course, always leave yourself some open time. And the other thing is, before you meet with those presenters, look at their season brochure, their websites at the present season. So you have an idea of the kind of acts they're doing. Okay, so if they're doing this act, well, I have an act that's similar to that, great follow-up. So be as prepared as possible. Otherwise, it could be like a steamroller, and before you know it, it's already Monday or Tuesday, APAP's over, and you're saying, well, what did I accomplish? Be as prepared as possible, and just do your homework and have a great time.
Great, thank you. Very helpful, very helpful. Okay, next, Pat Hazel.
Hello. Yeah, I guess I'll give you some what I would call mini APAP exhibitor hacks. Some things if you're a newcomer, having business cards in the back of your name tag means that they aren't left in somewhere else when you leave for lunch and come back and that kind of a thing. If you're curious about the big hall, you kind of don't want to leave your booth. So it's best on your setup day or whatever to get set up and then stroll those floors and kind of see who's there and know what's going on, so that you're in your booth, you can stay in your booth, because that's the one place they're going to find you, right? So I know that Judy and Nia, I think, mentioned the accessible hours. Yes, you can be gone from the booth, but it is a good place. There are a lot of people who will stroll that hall during accessible hours, hoping not to see salespeople, so that they can take a brochure or they can take a business card. And this is a long-term business of courtesy and relationship, I think Scott mentioned. And we have one of the longest, slowest turning ships in the ocean for booking. So you have to manage your expectations when you sign up for a booth and you get there. It may be 12 months or 18 months till you fit into somebody's season or longer. So you're not going to book something for next Friday or even the upcoming, March or something like that. So if you're coming from a different industry, the arts industry is built on these season brochures and these sort of long leads. And I think I've discovered that there's a lot of arts angels out there. They love stuff they can't book for a while, and they put you on a list. And so just maintaining, I think, that courtesy and the handshake and getting to know people, because there's an old saying that people like to buy, but they don't like to be sold. So I think if they like you, they will continue to pay attention to you. They'll continue to answer your emails and all that sort of thing. I think those have paid off, you know, not just years later, but once we're involved with them as a business, they're more interested in doing business with shows and friends and people that have been reliable to them and not people who've dropped out. I would say the one thing I told my employees along the way is when you're at APAP and when you're specifically the exhibit hall, don't spend any booth time gossiping or talking to artists or talking to other agents. Like epicenter, and you have a very short period of time to engage with presenters. So, you know, stay focused on that. You know, if you get caught at an accessible hour time talking to your booth neighbor or whatever, that's fantastic to make that relationship. But a lot of times those people will stroll over to your booth because they're bored. And what they do is they have somebody coming down the hall where you only really sometimes have as little as 15 to 30 seconds to have a hello, and then they may not come to floor again. So I find my business is the humor business, right? We do a lot of comedy concerts and stuff. So sometimes just offering them a brochure as a take-home menu for my roster or something, that may be the only engagement I have with them in a year. But then they are looking at something as opposed to passing by without getting something in their hand. I'm not a big fan of the car dealership approach to any of this, and I know we'll know there are a range of how agency and individual sort of thing. But I do think that remembering it's not a one-off. That just these are people that you're gonna see, you know, year after year. Treating them with respect and courtesy, and if they're engaged in a conversation, not stopping or interrupting them is a deal of value there. Also, temperature. You know, Scott mentioned the hand sanitizer, but these halls from Rhinelander to America's Hall 2, they vary in hot and coldness throughout the week. So being prepared with whatever that is, a sweater or something, and sensible shoes, particularly for the women. You know, you look great in high heels and wear those to dinner, but you're going to be on your feet, and flats are going to save your life for the amount of time you're walking and doing that kind of thing. The electricity, I think somebody mentioned, these halls vary in terms of brightness. Some of them I think at the top floor might have some windows with light pouring in or whatever. So if you think your display needs to be lit or whatever, that electricity, that whatever, even though it might feel inflated on cost, you know, remember the investment here is in the bigger picture of how your shows look and whether they notice you and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, that's sort of really is to be sure you're seen and heard and look good, and you know, don't cut a corner on your, you know, what you're hanging as your sign, because it does reflect on the kinds of shows that you're selling. So maybe that's kind of the mini tour around things. Also, somebody mentioned sensitive escalators. Often they will identify as staircases during the run of the week, particularly going up to those upper floors. So, well, that's the politically correct way to say that they will shut off at some point, and people will have to go up and down them. You know, so you just sort of be prepared for that to happen.
Wow, Pat.
All right. Well, that's just maybe a quick tour through small things that might matter.
How do you really feel, Pat?
Well, I just, we run into all these mistakes over the years, and why not cut down the learning curve is what I say.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next, Toby.
Yeah, hi. Well, I would just like to, just going to agree with some of the things people have been saying already, like Kenny said about really important to set firm times whenever possible. You know, people, a lot of times, presenters will say, I'll stop by the booth. That's like a very common thing. And it's you know, I'm sure usually it's said in good faith, but when it comes down to it, you know, you're busy, and so then they're waiting and you don't see them. And so whenever you can do that, that is really important. Also to echo, preparing for the people before you see them, because you have a long list of things and you start pitching things. Like Kenny was saying, the time goes by and it's not like a focused conversation. So the more you can really look at their stuff before you have a meeting with them. It seems obvious, but in the heat of the moment, you get all busy beforehand. It's really worth it to try and prepare. And also, again, seems obvious, but I see people all the time, they're just kind of not asking questions first. The more you can ask questions and really understand what they're looking for, what their situation is, the more you're going to use your time really effectively. I would say also that in terms of, like you're saying, you want to make the most of the time that you have in the exhibit hall, but when there's time when either you've set up or there's some downtime or whenever you're not having meetings or it's not a really active time, I do think it's worth walking. I always like to walk around the hall and see what else is out there, just because there's always change. There's new exhibitors, and I find it really helpful to see what's new, what kind of give it a little context to what you're doing within what everyone else is doing. Maybe you notice some trends or some changes, or all of a sudden there's 4 exhibitors that only do tribute shows, for example, or like that weren't there, that weren't around 5 years ago. I just think it's really worth giving yourself a little context of the overall scope of what's out there, and it only takes a half hour or so. Again, not during the middle of the exhibit hours, but some other time when you're there, I think is really worth your time. And one other thing I would say that I've found is helpful, it also just kind of breaks up the formality of the kind of the resource room, which is just like, meetings nonstop, is sometimes going to panels or workshops that are going on, like pre-conference workshops or all that sort of thing. I've really enjoyed going to those over the years, if they're about festivals or world music or dance. Sometimes they're in my lane, sometimes they're not in my lane, but it's a chance to just kind of get a different perspective on someone might be giving some presentation about their festival or their company, and it's a nice way. It's a kind of an informal way to get to know some other people or some people that you know already. You get to hear them kind of expound in a way that they wouldn't have time for in your regular meeting, and I think that's really worthwhile and can lead to some interesting conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have. So it's just one more thing to do, but I found it enjoyable and worthwhile. So those are my ideas.
Thank you, Toby.
Thanks.
Neo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories and your tidbits of helpful info. Next, we'd like to talk about getting noticed at the conference. So in addition to purchasing a booth, sponsorship and advertising opportunities are available for additional recognition. I'd just like to highlight a few. We have tote bag inserts available. There is a reservation deadline of December 13th to have your insert included in our tote bag. A tote bag insert will allow you an initial welcome to all of the attendees that check in at registration. We also have booth enhancements available. So if you're looking at our interactive floor plan, you'll see a green highlight around your booth, which just makes it very easy for everyone to notice your booth right away. We also have tiered sponsorship opportunities available at the bronze, silver, and gold level. So there are many different opportunities for sponsorship participation in the conference. We also have advertising opportunities in print and digital. Inside Arts magazine, which is APAP's quarterly membership magazine, is available for advertising. The conference issue is the largest issue of the year. The reservation deadline is October 1st. In addition to print advertising, we also have many digital advertising options, such as e-news and our APAP website. And in a little bit, we'll talk about other social ways to be involved in the conference. Judy?
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Neo. Okay, so getting noticed. Email. Be relational, not transactional. That's a very interesting word. Do your homework. Use email wisely and use these resources. And I think you've already talked about the resources, the segmented attendee list, the first-time attendee tutorial videos, and getting past the inbox webinars. Okay. Oh, look, we have photos, guys. Okay, so lead retrieval was mentioned earlier. I think Neil was saying, like, if you, it's another option for capturing information that is on the, really like, literally, you are literally scanning the badge. So the, basic contact information for folks that you're meeting. We use a company, or we're working with a company called American Tradeshow. They were there last year. And we've gone, I think we've experimented with probably 8 different companies so far. This one is the best one. You are able to scan the badge and get the contact information instantly, receive data in a spreadsheet. You're able to rent a lead retrieval device through the GES Exhibitor Kit. Neo.
Thank you. And back to what we were speaking about, 2 different ways to participate and be engaged during the conference. We have our mobile app coming this fall, which is a great tool on site at APAP NYC. In your mobile app, you will see a detailed schedule of conference events and showcases and up to the minute schedule additions, as well as an exhibitor information section and a map of all the exhibit floors. We also have a schedule builder tool, which will allow you to map out your schedule during the conference and plan all of your meetings and sessions that you'd like to attend outside of Exhibit Hall. You also, again, as I want to reiterate, utilize the app to see important alerts and updates from the conference team. And now back to Judy.
Okay, so now, expert panelists, this is the time for the Q&A section. I'm going to ask Scott. Scott, I know you said you feel very strongly about hand sanitizer, but I want to know, are there any other items that you would strongly suggest that first-timers bring to the hall?
You know what I think is interesting for first-timers? It sounds so crazy to say, but is if there's some sort of candy or wrapped candy that you could have in bowls at your table, because people walking around the conference, everyone will stop and take a piece of candy. And if you're a first-timer, you may not have luck setting up appointments. You may not be able to fill your calendar with time-slotted people. We're trying to get people to your in any way that we can. And candy is I promise you, or breath mints, whatever, peppermints, people will stop and take them, strike up a conversation. It's a great way to meet people, and you'll be helping people out too. So I know that sounds maybe sort of crazy, but any sort of enticement to get people to take any time at all at your booth is worth your time. Okay,
and I'm going to add brownies to that and cupcakes because I see them every year.
Yes.
Every year, people have cupcakes, huge boxes of cupcakes delivered to their booth, and they hand them out to people. I do like the fact that you said wrapped candy because that was, because you're into that sanitary stuff because you like the hand sanitizer, so you're like, have that candy wrapped. I like that. Okay, so next. Ken, do you have any items you would strongly suggest that a first-timer bring to the hall?
The best thing I've done in the last 5 years is a big basket of clementines or oranges. I mean, the people love it because it's like we've been saying, the hall is like the Sahara Desert, and it's a great natural air freshener, for lack of a better phrase. And really, and I think anything like that. The mints are good, gum, anything like that is, let's face it, like he said, you strike up a conversation. I know some people have put like the newspapers in their booth, a couple of newspapers of the day. It's just whatever it takes, because let's face it, there's a lot of presenters who, don't want to be bothered, or, they're just looking around. They don't want to engage. But if you engage on a friendly basis, have an orange, have a piece of fruit, or have a mint, you're engaging on a very friendly and social term, not buyer to seller or seller to buyer.
Good. I haven't seen the newspapers before, so I'm going to look for those. Next, Pat, how about you? Do you have any items that you strongly suggest first-timer bring?
Wrapped slices of American cheese. No, I'm kidding. Uh, one of the things, this is a little tip, that attendee list is that's a gold standard of information, which I think is valuable before, during, and after. So I would just bring that further to their attention. Following Ken and Toby's lead, you're able to look at websites and do all of that. But when you're on site, if you've printed that out, and I know it was printed in the past, but having a printed version of, so if somebody comes by your booth and they don't have a business card, you're able to go back and put a check mark by their name or circle their information so you're able to find it quickly later. I've found that that's a good way for me to sort of pre-plan who's done one of my other shows, what show do I want to talk to them about, and I, put notes on that attendees list. And having a pen, it seems to be critical, whether you're putting notes on the back of their business card or whatever. You kind of don't want to rely on your memory with the volume of people you're seeing, maybe who they route with, or where there's a geographical exclusion. I do a lot of that on the back of a business card, but I don't run into a booking conflict in a territory. So that attendees list and a pen are really valuable.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, Toby, any items that you strongly urge a first timer bring?
I think it's pretty much been covered. I totally agree. Having something to engage some people as they walk by the booth is a great idea, and food is as good as any. And also, I would just say, bring something for yourself too, because you're going to get, it's a long day, so you'll want something for yourself and your colleagues in the booth as well to keep you up. But yeah, everything else has been covered.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I'm just going to add, as far as what happens when folks start to really do business and talk, sometimes it's like before they know it, they're out in the aisle. They start in the booth and they can somehow, whether it's because a number of people have come into the booth and they're taking up the space, or I'm not exactly sure. But it's one thing that the floor managers are on the lookout for, to try to help people not be in the aisle conducting business. So I don't want to forget to put that note out there. It's in the terms of agreement, but folks don't always see it, don't always get it. The other thing I want to just mention really quickly is about costumes. Can I wear my costume in the booth? Is the question. Costumes can be worn in the booth, but you can't walk around in your costume, because that is considered that you have an unfair advantage. Other exhibitors feel like you have an unfair advantage in terms of getting attention. So we do ask that if you do have on a costume, you stay in your booth. And, if you have to go to the restroom, that's one thing. But if you're walking around, then we're going to have to ask you to leave. So just want to mention that so we don't have to do with that. You have a sticky?
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So can we talk a bit about the phrase relational, not transactional, in the expo hall in terms of meeting attendees and doing business on the floor?
Did you all hear that?
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. It's Scott. I think it goes back to all we've sort of been saying about, somebody said a great thing, and I wrote it down. People like to buy, they don't like to be sold. And that's exactly what we're talking about. If, when people come by your booth, yes, of course, everybody wants someone to buy one of your shows, but really it's about creating relationships, and it's about asking where they're from, asking what sort of stuff they present, asking about their life, taking an interest. You may find it, we both went to the same school, or my mother went to, whatever, however you can form a relationship with these buyers, it will lead, the relationship will lead to the transaction later on. So I think it can best be summed up for me in that quote. I forget who said it. I think it was Kenny or Pat, that people like to buy, they don't like to be sold. And that pretty much is the whole thing in a nutshell, as far as I'm concerned.
Good.
Yeah. I would just add one. Relational, is the relationship, right? So when people approach my booth, I would prefer to get information from them than to tell them too much about it, because they can see it. They can see the name of it. They've shown some interest. I want to know, tell me about your hall. How many seats? How many through the season? What's your average ticket price? You know, immediately before they've done anything, I know whether they can afford a certain show or not another show. And that's a relationship based on exchanging casual information. And transactional is more the intent that you're thinking that you want to lock a booking in, or you're trying to figure out the exact date and so forth. They're gonna share that interest if it's top of mind for them. But being aggressive is in particular.
Oh, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
The idea of trying to close a deal.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on, but
you
keep breaking up.
It could
Hello?
be that I'm in Oskaloosa, Iowa. Hello.
Oh, okay.
I snuck the internet into Oskaloosa. They don't even have plumbing here, so I'm pulling this off
Oh my God.
like a hat trick.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, that means no. Okay. Here's one more. What are 3 things that I absolutely should not do in the hall?
Don't be obnoxious.
Don't be
Obnoxious. In other words, I can remember years ago where you talked about the sidewalls and the booth space, and I had put up a display, and sure enough, it was blocking the sidewall in between me and the other booth, but I was still within my booth range or boundaries, whatever. And I didn't think anything of it, you know. And finally, I saw the look on the person's face next to me, because they were too kind to tell me to tear it down or to take it down. And again, that was just my way of being. I didn't do it on purpose. I was being obnoxious. I wasn't being courteous. So rule of thumb is be courteous to your fellow booth presenters, exhibitors, because, you know, we're a village there. You know, like I said, look out for each other. We're a village.
Also, don't litter your brochures and your showcase stuff all over. Like, keep it in there are some specific places in your booth, and maybe where there's something designated for showcases. But I really find that every year newcomers are spreading them all over, passing them all out, putting them under hotel room doors. It's all bad. It's a bad situation. And they go, well, but this is the fastest way. You know, there are many rules about it, but, you know, be mindful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would add that don't interrupt someone else's meeting. If you're walking through the hall on your way back from the restroom and you see your best friend in a meeting with a presenter, don't take that time to go say hello, a real quick hug or something, because it's going to break up whatever relationship building is going on between those two people, and you can just see them later. So I think it's very nice to be respectful of the meetings that are taking place, and socialize after those meetings are over. Other people's meetings.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to share that could be helpful?
I would just say, as a first-time presenter, there are a lot of showcase opportunities at the hotel, and also offsite as well. And it's a good idea to go check those out, because it may be that it's something that you want to do in the future, and, you know, just sort of see how they're run, see what sort of stuff is done, see what sort of stuff works in those rooms, what sort of stuff maybe doesn't work so well in those rooms, because that will serve you in the future if you think showcasing is something that you want to do.
Okay, anybody else? Is that a no?
That's a no.
Okay. Okay, that's a no. That's fine. That's fine.
I have a question, Judy.
Oh, Mario has a question.
Yeah, I wanted to hear from one or more of you. How long would you advise folks it takes before you really in the kind of the groove of being successful there at APAP in the expo hall? I mean, I'm sure some people, as soon as they arrive, they're very lucky and they're booking things left and right, but I would say that's not the norm. I would say the norm, as you're all alluding to, involves building relationships. Maybe the person you're talking to is not going to book something for 5 years or 4 years. But would you say generally there's kind of a pathway trajectory of don't give up? It takes a few years to kind of get in the groove and get known here. Is there any advice along those lines you would offer to first-timers?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that, listen, it's all about the sale, of course, because you've got to pay help cover the cost of the booth, your registration fees, what have you. I think it's on a case-by-case basis. Thankfully, what I've seen at APAP is so many more presenters and buyers. I mean, we see, promoters coming to APAP, the AEGs of the world, Live Nations coming to APAP, theaters, not just performing arts centers, for-profit theaters. We see I see a lot more buyers than I have 15, 20 years ago. So I think that also increases the exhibitor's chance for making sales and, being transactional. I mean, our theory is over here is we want to be in front of as many presenters as possible in the course of APAP. So if I've got 5 agents taking 25, 30 meetings each, out of those 150 meetings, we should be able to generate some transactions. So I really think that what you guys do is you've done a great job of marketing APAP. So more and more buyers are in that groove. And the other good thing about APAP I found is by being in January, they've gone through the regionals. A lot of presenters have put their Broadway season to bed. Now they can be focusing on those 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 celebrity shows or non-Broadway shows, non-legit shows. So I think the pump is really primed by the time they get to APAP as opposed to the regionals, where they're really just, the presenters aren't really doing a lot of transactions, I find. That's one of the reasons why I stopped going to regionals.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
I would add to that the success doesn't really come even from the booking. The success comes from how your show performs for that particular presenter, because all these presenters talk. So it could be that you go to APAP and you get 2 bookings the first season, which would be great. And but if the show plays well at both of those venues and you have a great response and a great audience response and a great experience with the venue itself, then those presenters will talk to other presenters, and that is sort of how you build your place in the marketplace. So it's not over the minute the booking happens. It's just really sort of beginning then. So it does sort of, everything grows from from your first appearance in the hall. Everything will sort of grow from that. So it is something that takes a long time. So just be prepared to be patient and joyful, as I like to say. It's all part of the ride. And if you're just like the best person to work with, things will start coming your way because word will travel and people will want to work with you. So
can I settle onto that just a moment? I just want to say that showcases will do the same kind of thing because sometimes they don't get a taste of you unless they see you on your feet.
Right.
Showing and telling what the actual event is and emotion. And for a newcomer, while it's expensive to do some of these things, once you're showcasing, you have something to talk about in the booth. You're able to invite them to something. Even if they don't make it, they're able to then go check it out on the website, anything that intrigues them. So to answer about how long you can expect to do it, it has a lot to do with the uniqueness of your brand or your show in terms of, are you the kind of thing that they can see happening in their hall or on their schedule? Some people don't present my kind of thing at all, and so I don't expect necessarily too much to come from that. Other people have to warm up to it or see it. And just as much as Scott talked about those 2 shows paying off, those 2 shows or that showcase can stay with them a long time, whether it's a success or a failure. So if you rush into it with a shoddy showcase, or you get the booking and you go to their place and you do a show that's not, per the standards of our industry or whatever, this is an industry of sharing information. People, the pie's plenty big enough for people to play in different towns. And they often talk about their greatest successes and their greatest failures and not things in between.
Wow. Thank you. Anybody else?
Judy, can I put you on the spot for a second? Sometimes you've spoken to us at staff about how some individuals have terrific follow-through, even if it's their first time to go to exhibit hall, as opposed to those who don't, and what a difference that can make.
Yes, thank you. I won't say the name of the company or the guy, but it was a guy, and it was his first time, and he works that expo hall with everything in his being. Like he did the preparation you all spoke of in advance before he got there. He made appointments. He made use of every moment, literally, he made use of all 16 and a half hours of the expo hall. And he called me in April. So the conference is in January. He called me in April, and he had 22 signed contracts. And we use them as a testimony, and that might be a little extraordinary, but it's possible and it's doable. And that's just one story, but there are others that, but it really was about, the key, the similarity in all the stories is the preparation that folks put in, these first-timers put in to their APAP experience. And they networked before they came to the hall.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you. All right, so we're ready to wrap. We're going to wrap. Ta-da! After the conference, follow up on your leads. Just talking about it. And, if you do use American Tradeshow, the lead retrieval device, download your booth visitor information right away. And watch for announcements when to buy your booth for 2021. Neo.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today and all of our attendees as well. And lastly, we just want to remind you to get social. So please feel free to engage us on social media before, during, and after the conference. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and you can tweet with us at APAP365, #APAPNYC. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Judy?
Okay, now lastly, upcoming How to APAP First-Timer webinars on Tuesday, September 17th at 2 p.m. We're going to have showcasing at APAP NYC 2020. I know a couple of people were talking about showcasing on this webinar. And then lastly, we're going to have Getting the Most Out of Your Year-Round APAP Membership, Thursday, September 19th at 3 p.m. Replays available online, first-time attendees, apapnyc.org. Thank you to all of our expert panelists and to everybody who logged in. Thank you so much for attending. And see you in New York at APAP.
Thank you.